Dr. Cecilia Regina here. I want to talk about the level of violence in the response to Chelley and Olandria this season. So I started my response last week as the situation was still unfolding, but it was necessary to see who won in order to be able to give you all the best read on the situation. And to see the official response from Love Island itself, as well as all other news outlets, because people just kept saying, oh, well, they're still updating, the situation's ongoing, they have to wait and see, in response to why the threats and whatnot against them were not being taken seriously. Well, the show is over. As of last night, Amaya and Brian are the champions. The show is over, and Love Island, from the first day to this one, has never made an official statement except to condemn cyberbullying as a whole, but they have made no references to the extreme incidents involving Chelley and Olandria. And here's a quick history of those incidents. Breakfast is a big deal on the island, and so BuzzFeed Tasty did a review of what they would feed all of the contestants on the island, and they said they would make Chelley a knuckle sandwich. This is a real media outlet calling for violence against a Black woman. And the slide was reposted by the actual BuzzFeed as well. The whole outlet gave a half-assed apology, snatched down the original post, and then the original apology as well. All I could get was this quote from an article that covered the whole situation. And it says, we referenced a knuckle sandwich in our slide about Chelley, and we thought it meant to be cheeky. It landed with racial tones we did not intend, but should have seen coming. In other words, it's all fun and games to joke about Black women experiencing domestic violence. And if you think differently, you're too sensitive. I'm sorry if your feelings got hurt. F BuzzFeed. Moving right along, this was a community post from Girl the Boycotts to all the Flop Olandria fans, she says. And here is a meme. This is George Floyd originally and Derek Chauvin, the officer who unalived him, now being replaced with Huda as Derek and Olandria as George Floyd. I'll be unpacking the meaning behind this kind of horrible, hateful energy when we get into the analysis portion. Next incident. This is a screenshot posted by creator Adeline Marin on TikTok, who has over 1 million followers, saying that these are her punching bags, Chelley and Olandria, and it's her and the guy just beating the heck out of these punching bags. The open calls of violence towards these two women by other women truly astounding. Of course, she also issued a half-assed apology when she got called on her BS and started losing brand deals. Olandria and Chelley grew on me over the past couple episodes. When I was punching the punching bag saying their name, it was a joke because it was right after the episode where they ganged up on Huda. Notice the use of the word gang. I definitely didn't intend to incite any kind of violence or negativity while calling for violence. You all can read the rest. I'm sick of her excuses already. After Meg Thee Stallion was on the show, her hairdresser had this to say: I would have socked Olandria if I was Huda. And somebody responded, you're not talking about hitting any of the men who have been so cruel and hateful to Megan. He snatched the comment down, but it's too late. I hope she takes appropriate action. So that's just an overview of some of the major incidents. And by the way, I'm literally only covering violence. There has been so much hate directed towards these two, including Olandria's TikTok being hacked by Huda fans. It's funny how they love to blame the victim. Oh, you should enable two-factor authentication, they put in her bio. Oh, I didn't do any harm. Oh, these people are so sickening. But I'm literally only covering violence. And I can only get to some of it because there's so much. You can go on any post about Olandria or Chelley and see comments like this. Top comment with over 800 likes: in which episode does Chelley unalive? This is a screenshot someone sent in, and thank you so much for all people who provided information on incidents I either was unaware of or didn't have access to. So why all the hate? Why the calls for violence towards these young women? Not just by individual crazed fans, but by actual media outlets. Because they aren't stereotypes. A lot of people have talked about the parasocial relationship between Huda and her fans, but they don't understand the basis of this parasocial relationship. And it's imperative to understand why they're reacting so violently towards Chelley and Olandria. And even people who aren't fans of Huda still have all this hatred for them. If you are a Black woman, the world tries to put you in a box. A lot of people don't understand why the world complains about baby mamas, sapphires, welfare queens, every negative stereotype under the sun. But when a Black woman is not that, Michelle Obama, Gabby Douglas, Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. When you are unambiguously black and you perform at the top of your game, people wonder why other people, even sometimes black women, will pick those people apart. It's because people are only pretending to hate stereotypes or those people who represent stereotypical qualities. Because the same white comedians who have blackface in multiple episodes of their shows, like Tina Fey, on projects like Saturday Night Live to movies like Ghostbusters, promote the most stereotypical image of black women through people who participate, like Leslie Jones. And by the way, this is not a cast photo. I literally just looked up an article about Ghostbusters. This is the picture they're using to promote this movie. Everybody else is having a glamour shot, and look at how they have Leslie Jones. It's intentional. But the Leslie Jones and Tiffany Haddishes of the world play into this. They know they can make a living by playing up negative qualities that are unfairly associated with black women, and they do it. But more of that later. My overarching point is this is the version of black women that most people are comfortable with. Remember, this call for violence against Olandria particularly is a new phenomenon. The first few weeks in the villa, she was everybody's favorite. Oh, the commentary on her was a love letter because she was playing what people thought should be her role. This is the scene where she was talking about how she was happy to be Huda's support system and be that best friend that Huda needed. I grabbed this screenshot from a TikTok, and you can tell by the hands in the picture, a non-black woman posted it. Olandria is so real for this. Oh, remember everybody in the villa was, oh, she's so mature. Oh my gosh, she's so amazing. She's so wonderful. She's a girl's girl. And why did Olandria have time to be Huda's wailing wall? Because her connection with Taylor was off the rails, as per usual. And here I answer the question exactly what kind of parasocial relationship Huda's fans are having with her. First, I want you to notice something. Everybody in the world was saying Olandria should get off Taylor. He didn't deserve her. But when she actually did it, notice how the commentary flipped. She was not getting threats. People were not calling her out of her name. People were not calling for violence against her until she actually did what the people claimed that they wanted and started focusing on herself. People will say things because it's the right thing to say. It makes them sound and feel good, very caring. But in reality, a lot of people are paternalistic. No matter what they said, they liked this dynamic. They are used to depictions of women, particularly unambiguously black women, chasing black men and being rejected. This was their comfort thing. A familiar image that made them feel good, and it reified the hierarchy that they already buy into. Because of social media, things like reality TV, everybody has become privy to the struggles a lot of black women face with black men. And they often provide what looks like support. Oh my God, I don't know why black men treat you like this. It's so cruel. You all are so beautiful. You're so capable. You're so this and you're so that. But it's empty rhetoric most of the time. They tell you, you don't have to take that strike out on your own. You deserve better, Black Queen, because they think you don't have the ability to get better. They didn't think she had options. They thought she was going to be stuck here forever. And they were actually enjoying her being humiliated when he would do things like choose other women right in front of her. It's the same as someone pretending to be empathetic, patting you on the hand and rubbing you on the back, and then sending you right back into that same hell. And the reason Chelley was getting hate so much earlier than Olandria was because she challenged hierarchy in the minds of a lot of viewers and fans. Huda is the archetype of a certain kind of non-black woman, Kardashian, that goes after mostly black men because they think they'll get more play from them, better treatment, more attention. It's giving the remix of Chloe and Lamar Odom, even to Chris being a basketball player. And women like Chloe who struggle with insecurity will go and get a certain kind of black man because they know it's an easy layup. All they have to be to please that kind of man is not black. That's their big claim to fame. And it's clear Huda struggles with a lot of those same issues. She said, and I quote, "I got a bad boob job." And a million other comments just like it, alluding to deep-seated body image issues. Huda's fans see her as their representative. That's why they're so invested in what happens to her on the show. A lot of them are looking to her to reify hierarchy. Oh my God, show us that you're so much better than this one and so much better than that one. And that's why they aimed all of that hatred and violence at Chelley from the beginning, because Chelley had the temerity as an unambiguous Black woman to compete for the same man, Chris. And we saw this attitude reaffirmed in Huda from the beginning when Amaya came in and, started talking to Huda's connection at the time. It was, oh my God, that BICTH, she can't compare to me and I'm so much better. Like, why are you calling this woman you just met out of her name? Why the anger? If she really wasn't a threat, why this disproportionate outrage? Because while Amaya might be biracial, she is also ambiguous. She tended more towards the light-skinned curly hair aesthetic. And if somebody, that their big claim to fame with a Black man is that they're exotic, they are going to be threatened by somebody with that aesthetic also showing interest in the man. And I want to take a moment to talk about Jeremiah and Chris and their relationships with Huda, because Black men in these scenarios often think that they are excluded from the naked anti-Blackness that, these women and people who are their fans will display, because they think, oh, it's misogynoir. Oh, it's just hatred of Black women. And we have that too. First off, you will not escape. When you as a Black person are in a social dynamic with a Huda, you can never win. Unless you are playing the servant, unless you are super self-abnegating, you are a servile person, you agree with everything she says, you will be blamed. Let's have a look at some of the incidents with her and Chris. Remember the whole PDA convo? Chris was like, hey, I asked you for kisses in public. You won't give them to me, but you're all up on me in the bedroom, like in private, like what's going on? Huda interrupted him a whole bunch of times during this conversation. He couldn't even get his point out. Check out the headline of one of the posts from a Huda fan. M says, the way I would have slapped him so hard for having a conversation, for him saying, please stop interrupting me. It's the same anti-Black calls for violence against these men when they don't kowtow to Huda's every command, as the call for violence against Black women when they are competing or in some way calling her to accountability. And no matter how many people explain it in different ways to M's, they can't get it, because what they mean is he's not a person. He's not an equal person. Huda is the superior in the relationship. Of course, she gets to do whatever she wants, and he should just accede. So On Point with Skinny says this here was his third time asking her to let him finish, and she kept interrupting. Actually, I believe it was his fourth. M's completely moves the goalpost. Well, he was being defensive. Obviously, she felt the need to explain herself. How is he being defensive when he hasn't even finished the point yet? And when they can't move the goalpost, they outright lie. Jamil says, this is the third time she interrupted him. M said, this was the first. This clip is the first clip. This is a complete lie. And people calling her on the violence, slapping him because he asked to finish his sentence. Y'all are weird and abusive, just like Huda, I fear. And she says, okay, doesn't even deny it. Somebody else says slapped. She was literally interrupting him every time he opened his mouth. And Francie Fan says, Chris is more patient than me because, Lord, Huda fans see what they want to see. It doesn't matter what these men do. If he walks away, if he stays, it's always his fault. So back to the PDA convo, think about the outcome of that. All these women saying, well, of course, she has the right to decide whether she wants to be private here or whether she wants to kiss outside of challenges, or maybe she feels more comfortable in the bedroom. It's a complete specious argument, because how do you feel comfortable having smacks in the bedroom surrounded by the other couples, whether it's dark or not? First off, that's not even your call to make, because even if you two and the couple are cool with it, you don't get to make that choice for everybody in the room. But notice, it's all supposed to be on her terms. She says no PDA and she gets up and walks away. It's okay, cool. But later, and the episodes we just saw, it was like, oh, I want you to cuddle me right now. Wake up and cuddle me right now. He says, I'm trying to sleep. I don't feel like cuddling right now. She says, if you don't give me the attention I'm requiring right now, tomorrow's going to be very unpleasant for you. I'm going to ruin your day. And this was not isolated. The same thing happened with Jeremiah. He was constantly saying, oh, I was tired. I didn't get enough sleep, because she was waking him out of his sleep with like things like this. And this is in no way, shape, or form a defense of the demographics. And we'll get to that momentarily. But notice the response to her saying no and him saying no. She says no PDA. Girls jumped online. Her body, her choice. You can't demand blah, blah, blah. It's okay for somebody to feel one way in public and another in private. Live your life. But when he said no, oh my God, God forbid your girlfriend wants a cuddle. You're cruel. You're playing games. You're this, you're that. He can't say no. And it was the same post breakup. He went to sleep on soul ties. He's walking away from being in the bed and also holding court, telling everybody about the breakup. Now, she told Jeremiah, she was fussing at him, don't tell anybody our business, but went and broke that rule. Everybody was fine with it. When I say everybody, I mean the fandom. They were just fine. Of course, you need somebody to talk to. It is very rules for thee and not for me. Every standard she laid down for someone else, particularly a black person, she violated herself. And when she got called on it, she would go feral. And it's so important to talk about that because black men often think that they're getting over or they're going to be spared, and neither one of those things is true. In fact, when people try to talk about the anti-blackness being directed towards Chelley and Olandria, people are like, oh my God, how can you say whatever about Huda? Because she's only dated black men. Those are the ones with the most misogynoir. And because you are with a black man doesn't mean you view him as an equal. In fact, I would say she was so possessive of Jeremiah and Chris because she saw them as possessions, not people. Huda encouraged Chelley to explore her connection with Chris, not because she actually wanted that, but because she thought either Chris was going to embarrass her and be like, oh my God, no, why would I ever want you? When she was expecting him to reify hierarchy, steer into this idea that she was better and superior, and embarrass, just completely demolish Chelley. It was like it didn't compute. She didn't even believe that a guy like him could like an unambiguous, gorgeous girl like Chelley, especially not over her. Which, by the way, is the fault of black men. Because what do they talk about in their song lyrics, in their music videos, all over media, when they have a TV show, a movie, or whatever platform, they can't wait to talk about that stuff. So if you're associated with misogynoir now, that's on you. But the other outcome she thought could have been likely was that Chelley would just throw up her hands and back away. She's saying the right things for the camera. Oh no, you explore your connection. I don't want to get in the way. And she now gets bonus points. Chelley was going to be so intimidated. She was going to say, oh no, I couldn't possibly. Oh no, I can't compete with you. But the last outcome she thought was likely is that she could provoke a confrontation with Chelley. She said to herself, I will poke exactly the right buttons. I'll do exactly the right things. And Chelley's going to start to screaming and shouting and cussing me out. And she's going to look like a big stereotype. None of that happened. And that's why violence began to seep in from the world. People started flipping out because Chelley and Olandria didn't give them anything to hang their hat on. They normally fall back on the stereotypes and the nasty comments. Oh, you're just undesirable and nobody wants you and you're ugly and you're a baby mama and you're this and you're loud and you're ghetto and you're ratchet. And that's why you're receiving the response you're receiving. But when you're not any of those things, the form their attacks against black women normally take, they can't use them or else, first of all, they're going to look crazy. But also everyone will know it's pure racism. There's no other reason to call a woman those things if she's not those things except racism. And every accusation is a confession. People start screaming for violence against you, it's because you have threatened their cognitive dissonance. They don't want to admit the only way they can deal with a black woman is if they can feel they have something over her, that they can feel that she's somehow inferior to them. Again, look to the comments. This woman says, the reason I don't like Chelley is because she is too composed and perfect. It feels like a performance. Nothing wrong with that and good for her. But I much prefer watching and rooting for the girls that are messy and imperfect and let their flaws show like Amaya and Huda. This comment is saying so much. Let's unpack it. She's too composed and too perfect. It feels like a performance. In other words, a black girl, an unambiguous black girl, can't be perfect. She can't really be composed. She's hiding her true nature. She wants to scream and shout and be a ghetto mess. That's what's really inside her. Because tell me, when do black women who are messy and imperfect, according to this person's statement, and who let their flaws show, when do they get the same support and grace that a Huda gets? And honestly, I feel like putting Amaya and Huda on the same level is so disingenuous because when has Amaya been screaming, crashing out like that? And that's how they want to trap you. They want to put you in a no-win situation. If you scream and shout, you are a ghetto hood rat. And don't think I'm not coming back to the anti-blackness of that little nickname. I am. But you're just another neck-rolling project chick. You're this, you're that, you're the third. And now they're complaining about you being too perfect, too composed. But these are the kind of criticisms you always get of black women of a certain type. I know I've gotten it myself. Many, many years ago, I worked at a restaurant. My immediate manager and the general manager were both white women. One day I was called into a meeting, basically a subtext for a performance review. Do you want to know what their complaints about me were? that I dressed too nicely, I was a host, and that I was too professional. Yes, these are real complaints that they had a meeting with me about. And as I sat in the meeting and they were waving their arms around and screaming and shouting, and I continued to sit there, they were like, and you're not even showing that you care. I was like, how do you figure that? You're not crying. You're not getting emotional. The people want to see you get outside of yourself. And they get frustrated when you don't. Those women couldn't stand me. But you know who they loved? The other hosts who were also Black women, who told them all their business, who let them comment on their personal lives, who acted like those managers were so far their superior. People often think that the only white people who hate Black people or who want to see them in stereotypical positions are Republicans or, the out and out, that kind type. And it's not true. White women have most often been at the head of social movements in this country that are positive for Black people. They headed the abolition movement. Harriet Beecher Stowe was a white woman. She wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin in order to bring attention to the horrors of slavery, however you think it turned out. And then those same white women, when the 13th Amendment was passed and the 14th, they were the ones screaming and shouting for Black men not to be able to vote. A lot of them supported abolition from a paternalistic place. First of all, a lot of it was self-centered. They wanted an excuse to get out of the house. Remember, women couldn't easily do that back then. So by agitating for this cause, by doing what appeared to be a moral thing, they got some freedom themselves. But the idea Black men might be made equal or more equal than them before them enraged them. It was fine to do a favor for somebody you thought was beneath you because you were really engaged in paternalism. But the minute you thought those men might get a voice in whatnot in society, you were very anti. And don't even get me started on how when that didn't work out and Black men got the right to vote with the 15th Amendment, that then white women tried to get the right for themselves to vote while pushing out Black women. And there are a million books and articles that cover it. You can check this one out. The same exact thing happened with the civil rights movement. White women were very instrumental in the version of the 50s and 60s, but as soon as real progress started being made, the Voting Rights Act, Civil Rights Act, overturning of segregation, and a lot of the federal laws, they were like, that's enough. They were concerned about Black men getting all the best shots. This is their language, not mine. But Black men being able to be at schools and universities where they had been excluded, et cetera, and so began the feminist movement and the fight for the Equal Rights Amendment. But those ideas and discussion leave out the fact that Black women are Black and women simultaneously. Because of hierarchy, white women and non-Black women are going to have a very different response to Black men than they do Black women. Susan B. Anthony worked with Frederick Douglass just fine. Of course, he himself was married to a white woman. But anyhow, she could do that okay. But she was very anti and didn't want to be held accountable by Black women who spoke to her about what the white suffragettes were doing in terms of being racist and engaging in misogynoir. And Black men themselves often trade in misogynoir and perpetuate these stereotypes. So oftentimes when we see things like this happening on reality shows, Black men say, well, Black women don't get protection because of something they did wrong. It was your fault. If you hadn't been like this, that, and the third, people would have supported you. Oh, if you had only been fit, feminine, and friendly. Oh, the white woman is this and the non-Black woman is better. Here, they couldn't leverage those accusations. And people have noticed and they're asking a question. Hey, the support for Huda and the violent attitude towards Chelley and Olandria didn't always come down along racial lines. There is a large community of diasporic Black people, especially many African people, supporting Huda and being hateful towards these girls. Why is that? Jealousy. And I talked about this in my Nadia video over on TikTok, which I may attach at the end if I feel like it. Nadia, this creator right here on TikTok, said, even if Huda said the N-word right now, I still wouldn't like Chelley and Olandria. Why would another unambiguous, ebony-complected Black woman say this about these gorgeous girls? Recall the criticism I posted a few slides ago. Chelley was too polished, and that's why that user couldn't stand her. Chelley is polished, and so is Olandria. Olandria is also highly accomplished, and both women are exceedingly proud of their background. Some Black people think there's a dichotomy between achieving and being the best and being proud of your ethnic heritage. Olandria is an African American and she's done so much. And what's her nickname? Bama Barbie. Chelley is a Haitian American girl and she's always repping her flag. Their gorgeous braids, the way they both do their makeup to emphasize their Afrocentric features, their pride in their complexions, the way they carry themselves lets you know they are proud to be who they are. People who have a colonized mindset think the only way to make it is to erase all of the markers of blackness that attach themselves. I'll just make the observation, it was Nadia who started the hate train of the way Olandria puts on her concealer under her eyes, makes her cheekbones pop even more. She has said horrible, wretched thing after thing about this young lady who never did anything to her and has handed a lot of these anti-black people their talking points. Some people even lay the whole thing with BuzzFeed to her charge, saying if she hadn't said certain things first, it wouldn't have been okay for other people to say it. I don't know if I would go that far, but I will say this. I have seen out-and-out racists cite her point. And Nadia at least feels somewhat responsible because she snatched down those videos and gave a public apology, but it's giving you're closing the barn door after the cow already got out. It's too little too late. And it's giving fear of consequences more than actual sincere apologeticness. Audible has been contacted about pulling their brand sponsorship of her. She does a lot of content that includes media. If she's considered brand poison, nobody's going to go near her. But as I was saying, she started the criticism of the way Olandria does her makeup, the thing that the darker girlies are doing nowadays, where they use that concealer right underneath the eye. The color and the shape really emphasize your cheekbone. She criticized and nagged and pecked that to death. Look at her makeup. It's K-pop style. Look at her hair. It's the de-emphasis of all Afrocentric features. People who have been taught you find success, you find acceptance and assimilation only are going to be jealous and upset when someone who is proud of their heritage, who pushes their features, who pushes their cultural difference, who emphasizes different aspects of their blackness, when that person is getting praise and adulation, adoration for the authentic way they show up. People who have done the opposite, people who have been told they have to do the opposite to be accepted, are going to be angry. And it's funny because people who show up in the world like this are often the main ones saying things like, oh, blackness isn't a monolith, when they feel somebody is criticizing them for their choices, but they can't stand to see someone who doesn't conform to their ideas of right and wrong and who is still successful and proudly black. These people always complain, oh my God, the people didn't accept me and I had problems here and there and everywhere. And why can't black people just do whatever they want to do? But when they see someone who is outstanding but didn't assimilate and who is proudly black, they are flummoxed every time. Because let's be so for real, why are these people following Huda? They have no problem with the cultural markers of a certain kind of blackness as long as they're on anybody but a black woman. This shot really tells the tale. Look at the hand placement, the tongue out, the makeup choice. That coupled with the black scent, the lashes, it's an emulation of black women, whether they be rappers or non-black women who imitate black women, like the Kardashians. If Olandria acted like this, the Huda fans would not be flocking to her side. They love this aesthetic on a non-black woman. They think it's so cute. And when you call them out, it's, oh, she's Middle Eastern, she's Palestinian. Where are the cultural cues on that? And if you ever say this is the performance, people, oh, maybe she grew up in a black neighborhood. Blackness is not for you to adopt as a personality trait. But the reason why people, even some people who are themselves black, will think that this is so cute is because they have a colonized mindset. They have been inculcated with self-hatred, and they can only stand to see the amazing things that we've created, the culture that we've built outside of blackness. Because if Olandria acted like this, I can promise you they would not think it was so doggone cute. And Huda herself knows this is a lot of where her popularity lie, both in the villa and outside of it, because she asked Jeremiah, oh, are you just waiting for someone better to come along? When your only tie between you and this man is ambiguousness, of course you're afraid somebody else with the same claim to fame can come along and steal him away. I'm going to attach my Nadia video at the end because I go into so much of it in greater detail. But long story short, people who have been taught they have to play second fiddle, they've got to be the foil, they've got to uplift whiteness or non-blackness to be better off in the hierarchy. When they see somebody who has gotten what they want, the life that is their dream, without having to do that, they get upset. But all of these calls for violence are also Part anger and part distraction, because now we have to spend all this time protecting these women, protecting them from these nasty negative attitudes, that they no longer are having that smooth, unimpeded time that they were having in the villa. The violent rhetoric becomes a pretext to punish them, and that's exactly what happened to Chelley, which I knew was going to happen. This whole thing was happening because Chelley and Olandria were genuine competitors, and in the landscape of reality TV, people are not actually used to that. Huda and women like her think, oh, black men want them, no one wants black women, or they're a last choice. The cognitive dissonance was shattered when Chelley not only had men chasing her, they were performing so hard for her approval. And again, I turn to Huda's own words. She said to Jeremiah, yo, can you step it up? Because Ace is doing the great thing with the hibachi for Chelley. Did you see what she really said there? 2 black men are performing for the approval of 2 black women. Why am I not getting the same or better attention? And that's why a lot of people couldn't really decipher that conversation. They were like, what's going on here? She and Jeremiah are talking at cross purposes, because they were having 2 different conversations. Nor was that the only instance where something like this came up. During her time on Love Island, Chelley was showered with attention from Ace, Chris, Zach, Austin, and Charlie. Huda had Jeremiah and Chris. She attempted to pull TJ and Pepe, did not work. And lest we forget, Chris was showing Chelley so much attention, so much affirmation. She's my type, he said. Remember when he was threatening to change the words to Stevie Wonder's My Sherry Moore to My Chelley Amore? Huda was shook. She was like, how is it possible Chelley is getting more attention than me? And that's why she was always the one bringing up looks. Oh, would it be better if I was ugly? Why don't you say what you mean? So these fake conversations where people make memes like this, calling Chelley and Olandria mean girls for what? Holding Huda accountable for doing less than 100th of what Huda did every episode. It's a way to distract and ruin these women's experience, because you don't want people talking about, oh my God, how beautiful, how desirable these women are, which set the whole internet aflame. Instead, you want to perceive them as ganging up on Huda, again, steering into that idea that she's an innocent flower of womanhood, and these 2 gorgeous women are some kind of linebackers or street gang that's out to get her. That language, that rhetoric is so weaponized against black women. Oh, you were intimidating me. You're ganging up on me. I'm so scared of you. You're so aggressive. No, you're just a rock thrower and a hand hider. That's all. And you got called on your BS and you got upset about it. But notice how we're always the subject of conversation, even when we're not in the room. Sierra's making a very calculated choice to call Huda fans hood rats. I looked at many definitions, even some scholarly papers, and the history of the usage of hood rat traces back to 1993, and it is mostly pejorative. It's a negative. A dig on a supposedly promiscuous woman from an impoverished area. In other words, the ghetto, the hood. It has always been meant as a put down to black women. So while it's somewhat clever etymologically that Sierra is calling out Huda's performance of stereotypes of blackness with this term, what it's really saying is, oh, her fans are unclassy and uncultured because of their association with blackness. So it's really just misogynoir. And speaking of the whole Sierra controversy, check this out. So I waited to do my piece because I wanted to see what the mainstream news was going to say and if I needed to correct things or whatever. I didn't end up needing to correct anything because they never said anything about what Olandria and Chelley were going through. This is an article that ran today in the New York Times. It's called Love USA Island Ends with a Franchise First. Here's how it got here. After the finale, here are the big moments and takeaways for the 7 seasons of the show. So they're telling you, they're highlighting all the big moments and the takeaways from the 7th season. This section covers the big moments and scandals on the show. Just says videos dug up by online sleuths and then reported by TMZ showed one of the contestants who had just entered the villa, Yulissa Escobar, a Cuban-American woman from Miami, using a racial slur on a podcast. This is the entire section, including her apology. Doesn't mention what word she said. Compare this to the section on Sierra. She wasn't the only one to leave because of resurfaced social media post. Sierra Ortega, Mexican and Puerto Rican descent, used an anti-Asian slur while describing her appearance. She used the same slur in her caption of a 2015 post, blah, blah, blah. So look at all these paragraphs and more paragraphs. Do you notice an interesting difference? You have no idea from reading this article what Ulysses said or who the slur was against. Obviously, it was the N word. And rather than saying all this, whatever, Cuban American woman from Miami using a racial slur, she could have just said, use the N word, used an anti black slur, anything of that nature would have done. But here's the real tea. Look at this. This is the next section. It's called Mental Health and Online Harassment Became Major Subplots. Now I'm sure they're going to talk about all that Olandria and Chelley have been through. Actually, they talked about Huda and Sierra and mentioned nothing about the BuzzFeed article, nothing about any of the drama, including Olandria's page being broken into. Never mentioned those two women by name at all. Didn't even say there was accusations of anti-blackness. Nothing. Only Huda and Sierra in this section. And I underlined this section here because I had never heard this before. So they said the season's backlash initially seemed specifically targeted towards Mustafa, Huda, who at first was coupled up with Jeremiah Brown, a fellow Islander. The two had a tumultuous relationship, and an argument prompted concern from both viewers and Islanders who worried about her safety and the safety of others in the villa. This is literally the first time I've heard anything like this. He was sent home because he was a danger. People were upset when Jeremiah went home. They were like, this is to undercut Huda. I was stunned when I read this, but it's all about victimizing Huda. I was definitely disappointed in Shivani Gonzalez's take on what happened in the villa and like what the highlights of the season were. Even the important moments. How can you not talk about an actual media outlet attacking a black woman on the show? It's just poor journalism. Not to mention all the other important events that myself, a non-professional journalist, included. That's just due diligence. And as part of that due diligence, yes, I will say I was interviewed by the New York Times on the subject of Love Island. Now, this was a different writer altogether. This was Sadiba Hassan who interviewed me. But there are my quotes on the subject, and there are all things I enlarge on in greater detail in my TikToks if you're interested in those topics, because I don't think we can talk about what's happening with Chelley and Olandria and not talk about relationship meritocracy and forced competition, because those are things that are born out of the idea that there is a relationship hierarchy. And the reason I gave this interview is because I think these topics are extremely important. Love Island being this super mega phenomenon this time around, it's more than people needing a distraction in a very tumultuous time period. Although I thought that was a great point. When it comes to relationships, we're in the dark ages right before the Enlightenment. Various socioeconomical and historical factors are about to create a cultural reset so great you couldn't have imagined it. And so analyzing the patterns in people's behavior is very important right now. Knowing what their minds are actually informed by, it is key to understanding the next period of time we're about to step into. And for correcting certain behavior before it's too far gone. For years, people have been moving the goalposts, and everything that has been done wrong to us and whatnot, people have found a way to blame us for it, and that includes black men. But I don't know if you've noticed, it's no longer just us that has to bear the consequences. What happened in 2024 happened for this same exact reason. They found every reason in the world to move the goalposts on Kamala. To my knowledge, the only presidential candidate in the modern times who has worked in all three branches of government. She had a weird laugh. She was too polished. Oh, they couldn't trust a cop. This, that, and the third, all to elect a 34-time felon. I hope what's happening in 2025 has convinced you it is no longer about merit. They used to tell you you have to work twice as hard to get half as far. You have to work twice as hard to get half of what they have. But it was never about your credentials, and it was never about the work. You had to work twice as hard to use up your energy. They were holding back your progress on purpose to burn up the fruit of your labor. It's like what Winston Smith says in 1984. And of course, it's applicable to America, too, because, the West. Anyway, Oceana in the book is producing all these weapons of war, bombs and things like that, because the state pours all this money into creating a weapon that has to be used up. So the state gets rich. They're at perpetual war. And everyone knows war typically boosts the economy in the West. So the state is enriched without making the people any little bit richer because the products of their labor are being consumed. You blow up the bomb, you use the pew-pews and everything like that. The people don't realize any profit from all their labor. Black women, your labor is like that. If you're working twice as hard to get half as far, the company, whatever apparatus you're working for, the government, they're getting the results of your labor without you realizing any profit from it. Kamala raised over $1 billion, billion with a B, a landmark, record-breaking election fundraising benchmark. Well, guess what? Capital profited. Capitalism won because all that money got used up. She ran ads on, the media platforms. She ran her TV ads and her radio ads and her ads on social media and all that. All that money got used. Capital was enriched by a Black woman's talent to raise money, but she didn't get any profit. She's not the president. When they ask her to work for free, that's capital saying enrich us at your own cost. Where is Kamala since the election? Well, she didn't get a job. Why should she be working? Slavery is over. But that's how capital works. They want your labor, but they don't want you. They want the products, the profits, the creative contributions you can add, but they don't want you and they don't want to credit you. And they kept Olandria and Chelley on this show as long as they could to wring the profit out of their bodies. They were fan favorites, They were getting big time views, whether people loved them or hated them. They were getting all this attention, and the people wanted the vision. They wanted the views. They wanted Love Island to skyrocket to its most immense popularity ever. And what did Chelley and Olandria get out of it? Not a damn thing. Except mental anguish and abuse. Even the things you normally get, like a lot more followers and everything like that to build your social media brand, they have been denied because people have been doing things like breaking into their pages or starting hate campaigns to tell everybody to unfollow their pages. We don't know what those people did while they were in that girl's page. Did they unfollow a bunch of people? Did they block her settings so she can't get new followers? I don't know. I'm adding 2 more points and I got to get out of here. First, I try never to leave you without hope. As terrible as this whole thing has been, I wouldn't be covering it if I didn't think there was some good in it for Black women. Here it is. They want you. They want your gifts. They want your talent. Make them pay. Follow Kamala's example. Throw down the ball and go home, okay? If you don't get what you set out to get, don't let them keep on using up your labor to enrich themselves. They can call her name until they are blue in the face. She is looking like, what? Reclaiming my time. Turnabout is fair play. When they cost you money, cost them money. Remember when Simone Biles had the twisties and she withdrew from the Olympics in Tokyo? In my humble opinion, the reason she was struggling so much with mental health to start with is because of the racist coverage of the U.S. news. They were talking about her brother had been arrested for something. Mind you, this is not somebody she grew up with. I don't even know if they were in a relationship like that. And the first Olympics she was at, they were like, oh, and her mother did this, and she was adopted by her grandparents. And why would you do that? Here's somebody who's bringing honor and glory to the U.S. But she said, okay, bet, I'm going to my seat. I'm not going to injure myself. They went from 33 million a night to 13.97 million in views. They went down to a third of the viewership because the draw is Simone Biles. The draw is the best gymnast in history. The draw is somebody doing the moves nobody else can do. So she's like, fine, if I can't do my moves, I'm going to retire. If I can't do this, if you all want to make it hard for me to perform and bring you all viewership, which brings you revenue and whatnot, don't even worry about it. I don't have to do it. And once the ground rules were set and the people act like they had some sense, she's like, okay, I can come back. And then it boosted viewership again. You control everything. It all rises and falls on you. You don't have to work for free. And my last point would be, don't believe the hype. You're more than enough. Because look at what happened. Chelley had guys chasing her all around the villa, trying to give her princess treatment. And she was not, doing anything extra. Whereas Huda was much more obviously sexual. She literally slept with 2 men in the villa and often competed sexually for attention, as in the challenges, trying to have the type of magnetism that these girls did naturally. I have never seen anybody berate somebody who's actually beneath them. I have not seen anybody chasing down somebody who they actually felt was like in a lower position of life to harm them. Never. I don't see any of these Fortune 500 people outside of their offices screaming at the housing insecure people on the sidewalk, you should have done this, and you're a loser, and you... Never. You can catch them online or in the business pages feuding with other business owners. I don't see near a top model feuding with anybody who's not also on the runway. So never think that you're not enough. Just by being yourself, you are the ultimate, the pinnacle in competition. And if that weren't true, the whole world, including media outlets, would not be trying to bring these girls down. Only perfection could elicit this level of outrage. I've only seen people getting this heated up over established stars like Beyonce and Meg Thee Stallion. And they're just starting out. They're going to do tremendous, tremendous things. So please go support them. Help heal their mental health. I'm sure this must have been a very trying time when they come out of the villa and see what's being said behind their backs. I don't know. If you want to learn more about forced competition or dating meritocracy, both my original terms, you can go to my page on TikTok, same as my name here, at Cecilia Regina 275. But you can also just put in Dr. Cecilia Regina and you'll find me. Thank you for bearing with me through all of this. I really wanted to discuss this topic and I hope it is edifying to your mind. Subscribe here and never forget who you are. Doctor's orders.